Hey, what's up everyone, Omogonix here and welcome back to a brand new Unity tutorial here on the channel. I haven't done one of these in a bit of time, and that's just because I've been working on my own games and yeah, I've just had a bunch going on. But now here I am making another Unity tutorial once again. So today's tutorial is going to be on cutscenes in Unity. So let's say for example you have your player, and when you walk into a trigger, that then plays a cutscene, whether it's a pre-rendered cutscene or a real-time cutscene where you actually have an animation happening in real time. I'm going to be showing you guys how to do that today. And so yeah, it's going to be based on trigger, so when your player enters a trigger, then a cutscene plays. I'm going to be showing both a pre-rendered method and also just a normal real-time method as well. So if you guys do enjoy this tutorial, or you do find it helpful, be sure to like, comment, and subscribe for more, and let's get right into it. So first up, what we're going to do is we're going to make a real-time cutscene. Now, the reason as to why I'm not going to make a pre-rendered, a pre-rendered one first, is because I've already got a pre-rendered video that I am going to use as my cutscene. So a pre-rendered cutscene could be like just an MP4 or anything like that, you know, just a video file to play. So I've already got like a pre-rendered thing made up here. I'm just going to be using one of my old game intros that I used to use for my games. I've used this in a couple of my games before. So yeah, I'm going to be using this as my pre-rendered cutscene for the example in this video. So let's make a real-time cutscene. So if you've got your pre-rendered cutscene ready, then that's all good. If you don't, then be sure to get all that prepared if you are choosing to do a pre-rendered cutscene. And yeah, but if you're doing a real-time cutscene, this is where your part in the video comes in. So what we're going to do is we're going to get out a camera. So this will be our, our cutscenes camera. You can adjust whatever you want with your camera, whether you want to adjust the far clipping planes or something like that, so then your render view isn't too large, or if you want to change anything else, that's totally fine. I'm just going to keep the camera the way it is for the purpose of this tutorial. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to add a parent object, just an empty parent object, and I'm going to call this cutscene. And then so what we have here is then I'm just going to get like a cube, just so then we have like, just something going on in the cutscene, because I could just do something with the camera, right? But I want to actually like just do something with some other objects as well, because cutscenes involve not just camera movement but other objects moving as well. So I'm just going to place like a cube here and then a cube here, like just over there. And yeah, so that there is our cutscene ready. So what we're going to do is we are going to go Window, Animation, and then Animation. And then that will bring up the animation tab. So when your animation tab or window, whatever you want to call it, is open, you just press create to create a new animation. Oh, and make sure you have your the parent object of your cutscene stuff here selected. Make sure you have that selected. Just go click create. And now we're going to create a new animation. So this animation, I'm just going to call it cutscene anim. You guys can call it whatever you want. And so now I'm going to animate the cutscene. So when you create your animation, what you want to do to start it is you just want to press the red button to start recording. And then you'll know that your animation is recording if the timeline is red and if the button background is red as well. That's when you'll know that you're actually recording. So now you can just go to any point in the timeline you want and then start animating. So I'm just going to go to like the... oh, and also if you like use your middle mouse button, you can scroll in and out of the timeline as well. So I'm just going to go to the second mark, and I'm just going to like move my camera like just a bit back. Oh, just move it back, and I might even just give it a rotation, and also zoom in the field of view. If you guys also want to like preview what's going on in your scene as well, you can actually just switch over to your game view to see. So then you can actually just edit the values of your camera and your game view, or you can have both scenes displaying as once as well. You don't actually have to have just your scene view. You can also have your game view displaying elsewhere on your screen or whatever. Yeah. you know, the Unity layout is very customizable. So yeah, you can just pretty much just drag anything where you want. If you want your inspector over here, for example, you can literally have it over here. But you know, I like to have my inspector over here. You guys can do whatever you like, of course, but yeah, I'm just giving suggestions to make your workflow a bit easier. So here we have the first shot of the cutscene, which is just the camera zooming out and then the field of view zooming in. It gives a bit of a tiny bit of a dolly effect, actually. A dolly effect. And then I'm just going to go to the second mark, and then we might just have a cube just like stretch out a bit. So because I don't have like a a keyframe like at any other point in the timeline, the cube will basically start growing from the very start of the animation. But if you don't want that to happen, then what you can do is you can just like go to a certain part of the animation where you want the cube to start growing, or whatever object it is, and then you just like set everything back to normal, and then it will start growing at that point in particular. And yeah. So here I've got my cube stretching out, and then at the 2-second timeline I'll select this cube, and I'll just make sure I set the scale in at this point so then it doesn't start growing here. So, and then I'm just setting the values to what they usually are, and then we'll go to the 3rd-second mark, and then it'll grow at this point to like there or something. And yeah, hopefully my explanations are understandable as well. But anyways, there's our little cutscene. And then to top it all off, we'll have at the 6-second mark, this will be the end of the cutscene, just a short little 6-second cutscene. And the camera will like rotate up a bit, and it will like zoom out. So yeah, let's just watch what we've got here. Oh, and by the way, if you want to stop recording an animation, you just press the red button to stop recording. And let's see what we have here. So this here is my real-time cutscene. You know, just a very basic thing where you have 2 cubes basically enlarging in size. And yeah. So what I recommend you do as well is you go into your actual project folder, and then you find your animation. So here's my cutscene anim, and then you actually turn off the loop time, since we don't want the animation to loop. If you do want your cutscene to loop over and over and over again endlessly, then that's a different story. You can leave that enabled if you want to. But if you just want the cutscene to play just one time, like any other regular cutscene, then yeah, make sure you disable the loop time. And also be sure to save your scene in between as well. Just press Ctrl+S to save, and yeah, make sure you get everything saved in case your PC or your project crashes. Alrighty, so next up what we're going to do is with your cutscene parent object selected, the one which you animated on, just go just select that and then go Window, Animation, and then Animator. And then that will open up the animator window. And if you have your cutscene parent object selected, then you should be able to see your animation name on here in this orange rectangle. So what this is this is just our cutscene animation. But what we're going to do here is we are going to right click, and then we're going to go create state empty, and we're going to create a new empty state. And then you want to right click on this state and then set it as the layer default state. And then now this rectangle here will be orange because it's the first state of the animation, or of the animator, I should say. So what we're going to do is we're going to when you open up the animator tab, if this like little secondary tab here is on layers, you want to switch it over to parameters. And then you want to click this plus icon, and then you want to select trigger. And then with this, just enter in what you want here really. I'm just going to enter start. And then we're going to click on this again, we're going to right click, go make transition, and then we're going to make a transition arrow from our new state over to our cutscene animation. And then what we're going to do is we're going to left click on that arrow, and then we're going to close off has exit time. And then with the conditions, you want to press plus, and then make sure that your trigger is set as the condition. So what will happen is our cutscene animation will only play when the start condition is set, and that will be done via script when our player enters a trigger. So yeah. So that there is how we set up our real-time animation. And what you can do now is you can disable it if you want to, or you can leave it enabled if you want your actual cutscene objects to be enabled when the cutscene does actually happen. But if you are going to go with this approach, what I do suggest you do is you go to your animation tab, and then you just press the red button again to start recording with your cutscene parent object selected, of course, so then you're actually recording your cutscene animation. And what you want to do is you want to make sure that at the start of your animation, your cutscene's camera actually turns on. So at the very start, you want to make sure that you enable your cutscene camera. And the reason for that, and just stop recording once you do that, and the reason for that is because we want our cutscene camera to not be active when before the cutscene starts. So if you want to have your other objects that are in your cutscene to be active before your player actually enters the cutscene trigger, right? What I suggest you do is you disable your cutscene camera and then only enable it when the actual cutscene starts. So yeah. So now what we're going to do is we're actually going to make the trigger so then we can get this cutscene to happen. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go into my project folder, and then I'm going to right click, and then I'm going to go create, and then C# scripts, and I'm just going to call this cutscene trigger. And there we go. And then once you have your script created, just double click on it to open it, and then boom, your script should open up in Visual Studio. So now what we're going to do is we're going to get rid of the starter stuff here, and then we're going to enter in a few variables. So the first variable is going to be a public game object, and it's going to be called cutscene stuff, or it could be called cutscene objects. That's probably a better name for it. And so what this is going to be for is it's going to be for the object of our cutscene, so our cutscene's actual parent object. And the reason as to why we're going to have this here is, so let's say for example you want your real-time cutscene, like the whole object of it, to be disabled before the player enters the trigger. So when the player enters the trigger, then the actual cutscene object itself enables and then also plays the animation as well. So that's why we have that there. And the reason as to why it's public is so then we can assign the variable publicly in the Unity editor without having to do it in script. So next up we're going to have a public animator variable, and this is going to be for our cutscenes animator. So we'll just call this cutscene anim. So this will be for when our cutscene animation starts, so when we want to set the trigger of our cutscenes animator to start, so then the actual cutscene does play, because the default cutscene state is going to be on an empty animation before the player enters the trigger. Alrighty, so now that that stuff's out of the way, oh wait, one other thing that we'll need to do as well is another bool, and this will be to determine whether our cutscene is pre-rendered or not. So we'll just enter in a bool called pre-rendered. And yeah, so what a bool is it's something that can equal to true or false. So if pre-rendered equals to false, then the real-time cutscene stuff will happen. But then if our bool equals to true, then the pre-rendered stuff will happen. And also, speaking of pre-rendered stuff, another variable which we'll need for that, which I'll get to later when I do show you guys how to do pre-rendered cutscenes, is the video player variable. So this will just be for our cutscene video, or we could even call it just pre-rendered video. Pre-rendered video. I know that says pre-rendered actually. I think, yeah, no, that looks more right. There we go. So yeah, we'll call this a pre-rendered video. And so what this is it'll be the video player that plays our pre-rendered video. And also we'll even have the, we'll also need to get a raw image as well. A raw image variable. And this will be for the actual texture on our player's UI, which displays that video. So we'll just call that video image. And yeah. So again, with this pre-rendered stuff, this will be explained more later on. For now, we're going to be focusing on the more real-time stuff. Alrighty, so now what we're going to do is we're going to do our first function. So this is going to be void on trigger enter collider other, and then we'll do the brackets. And then what we're going to do is we're going to do if other.compare tag player. So if our object that enters the trigger is tagged as player, then what will happen is if pre-rendered equal to false, so if the pre-rendered bool is equal to false, what will happen is the cutscene object will be set active. So we'll set that to true. Oh, and by the way, I just realized something as well. We probably won't actually need this raw image variable, since, you know, you could also use this for the cutscene object as well, since they're the exact same thing, pretty much. So, yeah, we can just, we can get rid of this. You guys will see what I mean later on when we do get to the pre-rendered stuff, but yeah, we won't need that variable, that raw image variable, I just realized. So, yeah. So, if pre-rendered equals to false, cutscene object will equal to true, and not only that, but we'll do cutscene anim dot set trigger, and then this is another thing which I actually forgot. So we'll need a public string variable called we'll call this a cutscene trigger name, and this will be the name of our cutscene's trigger for the real-time cutscene. So we'll just enter that into here. So cutscene trigger name. There we go, and boom. So what will happen is when the player enters the trigger, the cutscene object will be enabled, then the cutscene animator's trigger will be set, so then the cutscene animation actually plays when it's enabled, if it's not enabled, that is. And now you might be thinking, wait a second, Omogonix, you've forgotten to disable the player script when the cutscene starts, and you know, you would be right on that actually, I did forget, and that's why we're going to enter in them variables now. So what you want to do is you want to enter in a public variable for your player's script. So I'm going to enter in sc_fps controller here, but depending on what your player script is called, you want to replace sc_fps controller with your player script's name. So yeah, make sure you do that. And so what we're going to do is we're going to call this player script. And then we're going to add another variable, and this will be for the player camera. And it could either be a camera variable or a game object variable that we could do, but let's just do we'll just do a camera variable. So we'll go public camera and then player cam. And the reason as to why we're getting these is so then when the player enters the trigger and a cutscene plays, the player script will then disable, and then it will enable after the cutscene happens. And then what will happen is the player camera will disable when that cutscene plays as well, and then it will enable then after, so then we don't have two cameras enabled at once in the scene, since, you know, that's not ideal for performance. So when the player enters the trigger, what we'll do is we won't need player script to be in the if pre-rendered equal to false line of stuff. We'll just need it underneath the if other.compare tag player. So we'll just do player script dot enabled equals false. And then when it comes to the player's camera, we'll just do that in here. So we'll go player cam dot it's dot enabled equals false, and there we go. Another thing which I forgot too is, yes, I know I keep on forgetting things, but at least I'm remembering as we go on. But yeah, we need to do public float, and this will be for our cutscene's time. So after the amount of time that happens in this cutscene, then what will happen is then the player will be enabled, and the player's camera will be enabled if needed, and yeah. So once the player enters the trigger and pre-rendered equals to false, the cutscene object will enable, the player camera will be disabled, then the cutscene animator will play. But another thing we need to do is we need to start a coroutine. And this coroutine will be called, we'll just call it cutscene routine. There we go. Boom. And so with this coroutine, what we're going to be doing is we're going to be doing IEnumerator. So this is a new function, by the way, so IEnumerator. And we're going to call this cutscene routine. And then that is what this start coroutine line here will be referring to, is this coroutine here. Another thing we'll need to do as well before we do continue on is so then the player doesn't trigger this cutscene trigger again accidentally, is when the player actually enters the trigger, we'll want to do this. So we'll want to do this dot game object dot get component, and you want to enter in a box collider or whatever collider your trigger may have, and then dot enabled equals false. So what we're doing here is we're just like disabling the collider of the trigger, so then the player doesn't interact with it again when they do enter the trigger. And so yeah. And so with your cutscene routine, you want to go yield return new, wait for seconds cutscene time. And so after the cutscene time, what will happen is the player script will be enabled again. So player script.enabled equals true, and then player cam.enabled equals true. And then boom. Alrighty guys, so we've pretty much got all the real-time stuff done. We will be getting to the pre-rendered stuff in a bit, but for now let's just stick to the real-time stuff. And yeah, let's actually head into the Unity editor now. And it turns out we have an error, which has to do with the video player. And so the reason as to why we have this is because at the top of the script, we have all these using lines here. You're just going to go using Unity engine.video, and then that should fix that up. Because what's going on is the video player variable isn't being recognized, and I think that has to do with this here. So let's test that out. And boom, as you can see it says reload script assemblies, which means that it's working, and boom. Alrighty, so what we're going to do now is we're actually going to get a cube. So we're going to go game object, 3D object, cube, and then this will be our trigger. So in order to make it a trigger on your collider, you just want to tick it as is trigger, and then you want to just disable the mesh renderer, and then boom, you have your trigger. So what I'm going to do now is I'm then going to just increase the size of it, and there we go. And then here we have our actual cutscene trigger, and boom. So now what we're going to do is we're going to add our cutscene trigger script to the actual trigger, and then now we're going to fill in some of these variables. We don't need to fill in all of them right now, we will need to at some point, but not right now. So first up is your cutscene object, which is, you know, this object right here. And then your cutscene anim, which is that exact same object. And then we have a pre-rendered video, we don't need that right now, at least not on this trigger. And then the cutscene trigger name, for me it's start, so I'm going to enter start, but whatever your cutscene trigger name equals to in the animator, in this animator window here, then make sure you put that there. And then your player script, again, make sure that you change the player script's name from sc_fps controller to whatever your player script is actually called. And then with your camera, you want to make sure that you go into your player and then get your player's camera. Boom. And then the cutscene time will just be however long your cutscene goes for. So for me, it's 6 seconds, so I might just enter like 6.5 seconds for the cutscene time. And then, yeah. And so there we go, there is our cutscene trigger. But another thing that we need to check before starting this and before testing this out is we need to go out to our player and make sure that they are tagged as player. So if your player isn't tagged as player, make sure you tag them as player. And then make sure that you have a rigid body actually attached to your player as well. And then I suggest you actually, you know, freeze the positions and rotations of your player's rigid body, unless your player's movement is of course rigid body related. But if your player's movement is character controller related, then, you know, just freeze all the positions and rotations of your rigid body attached to your player, and yeah, you should be all good to go. So now once we're ready, let's actually test this out and see if it all works. Alrighty, so here we are. Now once we walk through this trigger, the cutscene should play. Alrighty, so it turns out that there is a bit of a bug here, and if you're wondering what that bug has to do with, it has to do with the fact that at the end of the cutscene, even though the player would enable and, you know, the player's camera would enable as well, the cutscene camera is actually still enabled on the cutscene itself. So there are a few ways we can actually go about this. Either A, we can do it in script, or B, we can do it in animation. And I think what I'm going to go for is just by doing it in animation. So what we'll do here is with your cutscenes camera, you just want to, you know, record your cutscene animation again. So go to the end of it, and then disable your cutscenes camera, and boom. If you don't want to do it that way, there is the other scripting way as well, where what you would do, and I'm not going to do this for this tutorial, but, you know, I'll just quickly show you guys an example anyway. If you want to do this, you know, just, you know, do a new camera variable for the cutscene camera, and then in this coroutine here, after the cutscene time occurs, where your player script enables and your player cam enables, you'll want to have your cutscene camera then disable. So yeah, so you'd go like cutscene cam.enabled equals false or something like that. And yeah, so if you want to do it that way, you can, and yeah. But what I'm going to be doing for this tutorial is I'm just going to have it so then the actual camera itself disables in the cutscene animation, so yeah. And now let's actually test it out again, and hopefully it works, and that really was just the only issue happening there. So let's go through the cutscene trigger once again. Why isn't it playing? Did I not walk in the correct spot? Oh, there we go. I wasn't walking in the correct spot. And boom, as you can see, it all worked out in the end. And if you notice there too, there was a little pop-up saying that the camera couldn't be rendered for a second there, and I think that had to do with the fact that my cutscene time is set to 6.5 seconds, meanwhile the cutscene animation goes for 6 seconds, and then the cutscene camera disables at the 6 seconds, so then it's disabled for half a second, and there's no camera enabled for half a second, and yeah. So that's why that occurs. And the easy fix for that is just to change up my, either A, the animation to be 6.5 seconds long, or B, I can just go to my trigger and then set the cutscene time to 6 seconds, so then that doesn't happen again. And yeah, so that there is how you set up the real-time cutscene animation. And now let's set up the pre-rendered cutscene animation. So what we're going to be doing for this, and I am just going to disable the real-time cutscene stuff here for just a moment, because, you know, I do want to focus on the pre-rendered stuff right now. So what we're going to do is we're going to go to our game view, and we're going to go game object, UI, raw image, and then as you can see here, we now have a raw image in the scene. So what is a raw image? Well, this is used to display things like, you know, render textures, which can display videos and stuff like that. So that's what we're going to be using this raw image for. So I'm just going to increase the size of this so then it fits my my screen size. And yeah, you guys can scale it however you want to. If you don't want to scale things similar to how I do, that's totally fine. Also, just a scaling tip for your canvas as well is with your canvas, on the canvas scaler, change the UI scale mode from constant pixel size to scale with screen size, and then set the scale match mode to either shrink or expand. I think it might be expand, I think. Or shrink. Is it expand? Here, let me check this out with different resolutions and stuff like that. If I change this to shrink, yeah, no, expand. That's what you want to set it to. So go scale with screen size, and then I'd probably set the reference resolution to like something like 1920 by 1080, and then have it set to expand the screen, the screen match mode. So yeah, that's just a quick little tip there for you guys. And then what I'm going to do is I'm then going to properly scale my my raw image here, so then it's 19.2 by 10.8, aka 1920 by 1080. And yeah, so then we're going to be creating a render texture. So what we're going to be doing now is we're going to be creating a render texture. So in your project folder, you just want to right click and then go create, and then you want to find render texture, and then you just want to click that. So after you create your render texture, you just want to name it. So I'm just going to name mine to video just to be simple. And then you want to set the size of it too. I'm just going to set my video size to 1280 by 720. You guys can set yours to whatever you want. But yeah, I'm just going to be setting mine to 1280 by 720. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to click on my raw image again. And you guys can rename the raw image if you guys want to. You can rename any object if you want to. And then we're going to drag in the video render texture that I just made into this texture section here of the raw image. So then boom. Now we have our video texture applied to the raw image. Now what we're going to be doing is we're going to be going game object, and then video player, and we're going to be getting out a video player. So with this video player, what we're going to be doing is, so as you can see here, it says play on awake, but we're actually going to be, well, we could do this either of two ways. We could either A, disable play on awake, and then just, you know, play the video through script, or we could actually disable the whole object of the video player and then enable it and then have it play like that, which would be simple. You know, it's also simple to do it the other way as well. But what I'm leaning more towards right now is we actually just do it just via a normal, you know, just playing it. So we'll just disable play on awake. And, you know, you can disable the object if you want to as well, if you want to. But yeah. And so with this here, we're actually going to be putting in our video clips. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just find that video. So intro for games. We're just going to put that in there. Put in whatever video clip you want there, like your pre-rendered cutscene. And you know, make sure loop is off, so then your cutscene doesn't loop. And then you know, just set all the other settings to whatever you want. And then with the target texture, with the render mode, make sure you set it to render texture. And then with the target texture, make sure you set that to video, and boom. Then you'll have your video texture then all rendered there. Another thing you could do as well if you wanted to is you could actually display the video in the camera far or near plane if you want to. For the purpose of this tutorial, I am going to be doing it via render texture, but you guys actually don't have to do that if you really don't want to. You don't have to do that. You can, you know, render the video however you want to. Again, this is just a guide for this tutorial. You don't have to follow it exactly like I'm doing. You can actually change things up a bit if you know what you're doing. But yeah, so I'm just going to be doing it for a render texture for this tutorial. So yeah. And with the aspect ratio, I usually like to do fit inside, so then the whole video fits inside of the screen, no matter what the player's aspect ratio is, whether it's more wide or square, like 4:3, or 21:9, then yeah. And then, so that is our video player all set up. And now what we're going to do is, we're actually going to duplicate our cutscene trigger, just so then it doesn't have anything to do with this real-time one here. So I'm actually going to disable this. And I'm going to duplicate it, and then I'm going to enable the duplicated trigger. And then with this, with the cutscene object, we'll fill this in with the raw image. So you can actually disable the raw image. And then you can actually make that the cutscene object. And then with the cutscene anim, we don't need anything to do with that. So you can just remove that if you want to. And then with the pre-rendered video, you just put in video player. You don't need to have anything in for cutscene trigger name. Oh, and for pre-rendered, make sure you have that ticked true. Player script, make sure you have that filled in. The main camera, make sure you have that filled in. And then last but not least, the cutscene time. I might actually change it for the purpose of this to like 10 seconds or something. Doesn't really need to be that long, but I'll just change it for the purpose of this example. And then, yeah, so now let's actually do the rest of the scripting that we need to do. Alrighty, so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go back into the script so we can finish off this scripting once and for all. So what we're going to do is, in this bit of code, in this function here, where if the player enters the trigger, instead of if pre-rendered equals to false, we're going to have if pre-rendered equals to true down here. We'll just move that back into place. So we'll change false to true. If pre-rendered equals to true, then what will happen is the cutscene object will enable, so we'll be doing that again. And the player's camera will stay enabled this time, so we won't need that in this line. But we will have the cutscene coroutine play, so we'll copy that line and then paste it into here. And then what we'll be doing as well is we'll be doing pre-rendered video dot play. So then we can actually play the video. And then what we'll be doing here is down in the coroutine, if pre-rendered equal to true, what will happen is the pre-rendered video, so we'll just copy this line of code here, so pre-rendered video dot stop, and that will stop the cutscene, so then it's not playing anymore. And so that there should be it for the pre-rendered cutscene. Another thing you might want to do as well is if you want to, you can actually disable the cutscene object if you want to, so we'll do that. So then we're actually disabling the raw image as well, and yeah. So once that is all good, what you can do now is you can just go back into the scene. Oh, it looks like I've actually got a error here, pre-rendered. Oh, I know what the error is. Turns out I accidentally entered a variable wrong. I think that should work. Let's test that out. Did I do something wrong again? Oh yeah, up here too. Up there as well. Yep, accidentally entered pre-rendered wrong. And there we go, so now we have no more errors. So once you have all your variables filled in now, let's test out the pre-rendered cutscene. Alrighty, so I don't know where I placed this trigger again. I think it's somewhere around here, but I'll know once I enter it. And there we go. I have now entered the trigger, and the pre-rendered video is playing. And there we go. After the 10-second time limit, the pre-rendered video stopped, and now we can move around again. And so that there, guys, is how you do cutscenes in Unity, or at least, you know, just the way I showed you guys how to do it. There are plenty of ways how to do things in Unity. Of course, my tutorials just teach a singular way. There's all sorts of different ways on how to do things, but, you know, my tutorials just teach my way. And so yeah, anyways guys, that is the end of this tutorial. If you did enjoy, be sure to like, comment, and subscribe for more. And yeah, if you want more tutorials like this, be sure to let me know down in the comments below. I do get a lot of suggestions for tutorials, but I find that I'm not usually able to keep up, or sometimes I'm just not really interested in making a tutorial on something at the time, and you know, I usually just like to make tutorials on things I'm interested in making tutorials on. You know, it's not that I might not like an idea or hate a suggestion. You know, I might think a suggestion is good, but I just might not feel like actually, you know, making a tutorial on that thing, because I might not have the drive to, you know. So yeah, anyways, again, that's the end of this video. Be sure to go check out the Forgotten Tapes Twisted Forms on Steam. As of recording this video, that only just came out today. I made a game for it called Flesh Simulator. What Twisted Forms is it's a collection of games published by Bloody Vulpine. A bunch of developers, including myself, were involved. So if you want to go check it out, be sure to. It would mean a lot. And yeah, I'll see you all next time. Bye-bye.